This is where the nation comes to speak. Starmer's not saying a lot. Nobody's ever heard anything from him for about 5 days. Usually he tweets, "Nowhere to hide," on the front of the Sun. That could be about Starmer. 0344 499 1000 87222 on the text. We're talking about the Home Secretary today, Shabana Mahmood, saying, "I will sort out the immigration problems." We're delighted to be joined now by the political editor of the Sun, a boy who has risen like a, well, I don't know, just like a phoenix. Good morning, Jack Elson. Very important person now. How are you?
Good morning, Jeremy. Yes, very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Can we start with Starmer? Where is he? He tweeted on Friday, "Happy birthday to the King." We haven't heard anything. We've had a weekend of... I mean, these words from Shabana Mahmood are the strongest I've heard from a Home Secretary in about 20 years. I've no doubt she won't be able to do anything about it and is probably pitching for the leadership. But for a Home Secretary on the Labour side to say, "Britain is being torn apart by an immigration system that is broken. We need to deport people. I need to restore order." I don't want to be disrespectful, Jack, but up to 2 months ago, that was right-wing bigoted fascism, wasn't it, in the Labour Party's view?
Well, as Nigel Farage put it last night, the words coming out of the Home Secretary's mouth mean that she should probably be a Reform supporter rather than a member of the Labour cabinet. Listen, clearly Shabana Mahmood is one of the toughest cookies in the Labour fold, and knows that she will, and this government will live or die by whether or not it can solve the thorny issue of illegal migration, and she's prepared to put in the tough measures to do that. Clearly, there are two things, I think, which are words of caution to her. One is that it needs to be more than just tough talking, and people will judge her not by her rhetoric but by her actions. And let's come back here in a few months' time and see whether some of these measures today have actually made a dent. But then also, clearly, she's going to, by doing this, infuriate a lot of her own backbench MPs who are already now coming out calling this performatively cruel, saying how it's not Labour politics to be, putting the clamps on asylum seekers. I think Shabana Mahmood is happy to have that fight. The problem is whether the rest of her front bench are. Is Keir Starmer ready to go to war with some parts of his Labour backbenchers? Rod Liddle writes in the piece today, actually, when times have shown that he needs to stand up against some of his MPs, he's folded like a deck chair. I mean, think about that welfare rebellion. Yeah. You know, £5 billion worth of welfare cuts can get through. So Shabana
Think about the
I
income tax rise and the budget.
Exactly.
He does fold like a... And this is interesting. Rod Liddle's thing says Starmer and co don't lead, they flounder, then react badly. Yes, he's not proactive. He is reactive. Now, I'm sitting watching this Home Secretary speak the words that she's speaking, and like you've said, I'm fully aware that if you don't leave the ECHR, it'll be torpedoed by lawyers and our own backbench MPs. But is it more? Is this gaslighting? Because that's what it is. Is it for her own personal ends? Is this a pitch for the leadership? You've also got to bear in mind, I guess, that there's hundreds of Labour MPs, backbench MPs, who are looking at what's going on. They're looking at the opinion polls, and nearly 2 years into a parliament, they're thinking, I'm going to lose my bleeding job unless something's done here. I don't know. But we also know, don't we, Jack, she ain't got a chance of leading the Labour Party, neither has West Streeting. It'll be Ed the Weirdo Miliband, because that's what the members will do. That's what they want.
Well, I think this is true. Some people in the cabinet are pitching towards the country, and some people are pitching towards Labour Party members. Yeah. Think about who got the biggest cheers at Labour Party conference. One of them was Keir Starmer, when he did this whole lefty love-in about basically being united against reform, who are a bunch of racists. The person who got the quietest cheer, and actually a bit of muted applause, was Shabana Mahmood, when she told them some pretty hard truths about how there's nothing compassionate about letting young men cross the channel and come into this country and risk their lives. And actually, we need to put a stop to this mess. That didn't get the rapturous applause in the hall that some of her colleagues did. But I think Shabana Mahmood knows that Labour need to solve this issue if it has any chance whatsoever of beating reform at the next election, not least because if you do this, then in their view, you make immigration, illegal immigration, as an issue, basically sort of die away at the next election. And that is their only chance, really, about stopping the Farage march.
But that's why people, Jack, don't believe, I suspect, in their millions, the validity of what she's being said, because it's almost like you were a right-wing bigot if you did that in the past. You've got to try and convince people, I've listened and I'm doing that. Well, I would have thought you would have listened before you went into Parliament and did something as you entered. 16 months in, people are going to go, Is this are these measures desperate? But you could also argue, be really interesting to see whether she sees this through. Talking about the Labour Party and nothing from Starmer, where is he? Great. We had Poppy Coburn on the show this morning, and I can give you an exclusive, Jack. This is brilliant. Angela Rayner is apparently planning to challenge Sir Keir Starmer. This is everyone knows it. Said to be already walking the corridors of Westminster, offering MPs cabinet jobs. But apparently she's also yet to pay back the 40 grand. Poppy Coburn from The Telegraph told us earlier she ain't got the money to pay it back, and she's caught between the devil and the deep blue sea.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, Angela Rayner clearly being seen by many already as their red queen over the water, someone that can be their left-wing standard bearer. And I can imagine, it'd be interesting to see where she comes out in terms of the illegal migration row. Clearly at the budget, there are going to be some uncomfortable decisions, and whether Angela Rayner decides to make her move then, or whether the next flashpoint, I think more likely, is going to be at the local elections next May, when hundreds of Labour councillors look like they're walking into the electoral mincer. They could be pushed into, third in Scotland, third in Wales, and so it's looking very uncomfortable for them. The question is who is actually ready to challenge Keir Starmer if a time comes on the Labour backbenches? We've already talked about Shabana Mahmood. Many of her MPs and party find what she's doing a bit uncomfortable. They're a bit squeamish about her. Wes Streeting, until last week, was clearly maybe a bit too centre-right for them. He's picked big fights with the BMA, but actually now he's been martyred after being attacked by the Starmer operation. Angela Rayner, is it a bit too soon after being mired in a big sleaze scandal to come back? Well, for most of the public, probably yes, but for her loyalist MPs and for some of the party that just want a big left-winger in their ranks, they'd probably turn a blind eye to it. They probably don't mind. So I think, I don't think anyone's totally ready yet. It's not like a Michael Heseltine figure, or maybe like Rishi Sunak under Boris Johnson. There's not like an obvious person who I think could emerge as a front runner. But clearly Starmer at the moment is very vulnerable because the questions are being asked about his leadership all the time and things aren't getting much better.
Great. And also, can I just, as a political operative, I call you expert, not operative, can you give me a response to this ludicrous suggestion in the Times this morning on page 2 that this government, desperate to hold on to power, are going to allow under-18s to vote at school because obviously they're not intelligent enough to leave school, or in fact old enough to leave school and go and find a voting booth. They're going to be put into schools to make sure that this younger generation get their vote in. Many people, Jack, responding this morning and saying, should you be allowed to vote before you pay tax? I don't agree with. I mean, honestly, if I ask my 6-year-old, he's go, I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are, but under 18s could be voting at school, Jack Elson. What fun that will be.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit bizarre, isn't it? And I think it just goes to show clearly if you're going to do this policy, that school hours are what, 9 till 5? I mean, I can't remember what they are. But
9 to 5.
I know you'll be shocked, Jeremy, but it was a long time ago since I was at school. I know you think it's about a year ago or something, but it's been a long.
How old are you, Jack Elson?
It's been a long time.
You brought this up. How old are you?
No. I never reveal my age. I'm a ripe old age of 28.
Great.
But I think the point is that the fact that I think it basically just demonstrates, I think, what many people think is the absurdity of lowering the voting age, because it goes to show that if people can't even have their own free will to leave school, then how on earth are they going to try and make decisions that govern the rest of us? Yeah. And I think the political problem, to bring it back to that with Labour, is that this could spectacularly backfire, because traditionally 16, 17-year-olds, the youth vote has gone towards Labour. Now you're going to have a large chunk of lefties that are going to go to the Greens, the Lib Dems, your party, Corbyn and the rest of it. You're also going to have a big part of the new sort of generation of youngsters who are going to break for Nigel Farage.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely right. Now, the next part of the show is not political, but we need very quick responses, and then I'll let you go, Jack Elson. Shocking news today that in the latest war on motorists, Britain's roads are to be made narrower to stop drivers from overtaking cyclists. Cyclists up in arms. The motorists up in arms saying they don't pay tax. They don't. There's nothing. They don't have insurance. They're a disgrace. They go through red lights. Do you ride a bike in town, Jack?
No, although I was in the country this weekend, I was stuck behind about 5 or 6 cyclists in Lycra for about 30 minutes, going 20 miles below the speed limit, and none of them would move past. And so cyclists aren't in my good books this morning.
Quite right. And
But I don't
finally,
mind them.
I don't know if you've seen this story. This is absolutely gone this morning. The UK's Health Security Agency has said that climate change, eco-fear, eco-anger and eco-grief is causing millions of people in the United Kingdom, ready for this, because they're concerned that the sea will boil and the fish will die, to become hard drug takers. Apparently UK's drug use is increasing dramatically because a certain number of people in the younger generation are consumed by eco-fear, eco-anger and eco-gift, and their mental health is suffering. I have to ask you this, Jack Elsom, are you worried about the climate?
I am worried about the climate, but I don't
Are
think
you
to
on
the-
crack cocaine then? I mean, that's what I've got to ask you.
No, never taken crack cocaine and never will.
But isn't that barking madman that they actually believe that if you're worried about the climate, somebody spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on that? It's ludicrous, isn't it? And my favourite story of the morning, it can't go away, is the UK Health Security Agency has said that climate change could be fueling Britain's drug use. People's fear of the eco-disaster that's coming our way has meant that many have turned to crack cocaine and other strong drugs. Morning to Simon in Eastbourne, who says, I had dreadful, dreadful climate anxiety, Jez, and was heading for a life on Class A drugs. My life was looking in real turmoil, and then suddenly one day I woke up and I bought an umbrella and a pair of sunglasses, and strangely my anxiety has completely disappeared. Love it. 528. You might have heard me talk earlier about this particular river. I think it's the river Cherwell between the A34 and it's basically in Oxfordshire. There's been some terrible, terrible footage. You might see it on screen there, put out and about on social media at the weekend. I mean, sort of 2 or 3 foot high instead of the water, of just the most awful rubbish and refuse and plastic. And, you know, the state of this country, we're worried about, you know, people being anxious about the climate, and we're doing that to our rivers. Very quickly, Amy Fairman is head of campaigns at River Action. Amy, good morning. I wanted to get this on the show. This is an absolute national disgrace. We spend our times talking about things that I think are irrelevant, and then you get that in our countryside. Disgusting.
Yeah, it's really, really terrible, isn't it, Jeremy? I mean, this is a mountain of waste. It's 10 meters high, 15 meters wide, and 60 meters long. Imagine you're running your sports day and you run that 100 meter
500 feet
track.
long, this, isn't it? It's just plastic and foam and wood. It's horrible.
It's absolutely huge, and this is the work of essentially organised waste crime. You know, coming in and it's, local residents in the area have spotted this springing up over the last few months, and this is truckloads of waste that's being dumped right next to the river, as you said, the River Cherwell. It's just feet away, the end of this illegal waste site, and all of this material, you know, with the rain that we're seeing and the wind, is simply just washing into the river there. It's pretty shocking.
When you look at that from River Action, you know how much sewage is being pumped into our rivers, and how, and I'm quite big on the countryside. There's lots of things people say I'm not big on, but I am, and I just think we are slowly eroding so much of our countryside. Don't get me on what the farmers are going through with the Labour Party, but that's just disgraceful, and I get so wound up when I see stuff like that, and then I sit here on this show and we talk about, the anxiety of a 16-year-old because of the climate. What a load. That's important. What's on screen, isn't it?
Yeah, and we really need to tackle these issues front on, and we need to see the people who have committed this crime. It is a crime, held to account, and we need to see the authorities, the local authority and the regulator, the Environment Agency, act really quickly to find the perpetrators, to hold them to account, and essentially clear up this site, this waste site. And this isn't an isolated incident. We're seeing fly tipping and organised crime like this, not just in the River Cherwell, but all over the country. And we need to see the regulator have the resources, empowered from the government, to investigate on the ground and hold those people to account and clear up this mess.
I don't understand, just very briefly, and I wish we had more time, why this would not be a concern for local authorities or for central government, because it's a stain on our society, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and we need to see the government take action in their upcoming white paper that they're going to be producing, where they're reforming the regulators. They're going to be bringing Ofwat and the Environment Agency together as a super regulator, and we need to see them have the resources and the funding to actually clear up these kinds of incidents and investigate them. We've seen that a regulator have its funding cut by up to 70% over the last 10 years, and we need to see that reversed.
Are you, sir, in that green tie that's becoming famous by the day?
Very good to see you. Good morning. How are you?
The king of car boots. More of that later, Robert Jenner. Thank you, mate. Really good. So many people. I want to get straight to it. So many people asking all sorts of questions. Are you open for this?
Let's go.
Start with Luke in Leicester. In your mind, was it appropriate for Shabana Mahmood to swear in the House of Commons yesterday? I would add the caveat, you've been accused of that. I would also add the caveat, she was very passionate. What's your view?
I like to see passionate people in the House of Commons, and sometimes you have to actually use language that meets the anger and frustration that the public feels. So I don't mind that, to be honest. I'm sick of politicians who are mealy-mouthed, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I said at the beginning, and I've been saying all morning.
There's a time and a place for it, don't get me wrong, and the House of Commons probably isn't the obvious place, but I think you want politicians to show some passion.
I thought it was the most passionate speech, well-meaning speech. The way she took on the Greens, that's my weekly, and the SNP and other people, was really fascinating to watch. I don't think she'll get it through. Sadly, I think it's rhetoric. Where the hell was her boss? But I thought in terms of the performance, it was quite standout, to be honest, and I genuinely mean that. Here's another one. This is from Robert Taylor in Nottingham. Hi, Jez. Question for Rob. If the Tories win the next election, would they cancel VAT on private school fees?
Yes, we've said that very clearly.
Brilliant.
And why? Because it's a tax on aspiration. You know, this isn't going to hurt the richest in society. They can afford to send their kids to wherever it is, Eton, or the sort of finest schools in the land. It hurts middle-class parents who are the ones who are saying, I'm not going to go on holiday, I'll have an older car, you know, I'm not going to move house in order to send our kids to a private school, and that's wrong.
Interesting. Hannah in Gloucester. Would the Conservatives lend their votes to help Shabana Mahmood clamp down on her asylum abusers and get through her announcements yesterday? Kemi Bednock said you would. Would you support, says Hannah in Gloucester also as well, this £3,000 payment to return home, or is it only certain parts of what she said yesterday the Tories would support?
Look, we support the measures insofar as they're a helpful step in the right direction. But I actually feel sorry for your listeners today, because they've heard all this before. They've heard time and again Home Secretaries come to Parliament, dial up the rhetoric, say that they're going to stop the boats, they're going to smash the gangs, they're going to fix this problem, and it never actually happens. All the while, the numbers keep rising. The hotels pop up on everyone's high streets. Billions of pounds get wasted on this crime spirals, particularly sexual crime from people coming from parts of the world with very different attitudes towards women and girls. The truth is this: if you actually want to fix this problem, you've got to detain and deport absolutely everyone who comes here illegally. And you've got to send a very clear message that you will never get to have a life in the UK if you enter our country on a small boat.
Do you not agree with me that they should...
That is not what Shabana Mahmood... Let me finish this point. That is not what Shabana Mahmood said yesterday.
No.
She will not leave the ECHR.
No.
She won't take on our human rights laws. She's not going to detain and deport everyone who comes here. And she actually said that if you're a bloke in a safe country like France, come on a small boat, claim asylum, and yeah, it might take you a bit longer. It might even take you 20 years, hypothetically, to get full rights to live in this country. But you will get them. That is not the kind of system that I want to see. In fact, when I was in office, I legislated to say, if you break into our country illegally, you will never get the right to claim asylum. That is the system that we need.
So Richard in Norfolk says, do you think it's right that we give failed asylum seekers $3,000 to leave this country?
Well, I want the cheapest, easiest route to get these people out of the country, and if sometimes that means giving them...
But why should we have to give them money, Rob?
Well,
that's what I don't understand.
It pains me to do that, but if that is the cheapest way
to
get someone out of the country, well, yeah, absolutely.
Is there any other country in the world? I think this is what's really got people this morning, and this is the crux of the matter, and you know this better than anybody. energy bills, food prices, everybody's up against it. And they hear on the radio, they see on the telly, we're going to give somebody who illegally broke in £3,000. I said it at the top of the hour, and I understand it's a difficult question, and you'd be accused if you say yes, or how's that going to work? The will of politicians is surely to listen to the people. The people are saying, we, the indigenous population, feel like we're being shortchanged.
People are
terrible.
People are absolutely appalled by it. Remember the young girl who was sexually assaulted in Epping, and the guy who did that to her was given 500 quid to not put in some last-minute vexatious claims and get on the flight back to his own country. And her dad said that he felt almost violated by that his money, taxpayers' money, was going to the bloke who'd done this to his daughter. I understand. The system we've got to have is one where no one is being paid this money in the first place. No one's living in a hotel. They are arriving on our shores. They are detained immediately and deported. End of story. No money passing.
What about stopping them coming here in the first place?
Well, that is how you stop them coming here in the first place, because they're all in a place of safety. They're in France. What are they
agree with me
Emmanuel Macron?
I completely agree.
Life in France is good.
What do you think? Listen, you were the immigration minister. You've every right to laugh at me. I've said it to you before. This is a huge boat. I'd recondition it. I'd put it in the channel. I literally would have trained a team of people who can make decisions like that, border force officials, and I would get the Navy to stop the boats and pick the people up and put them. You're not setting foot in the country. If you have proven rights to be here, red carpet, welcome. If not, you're going to a detention centre, and that detention centre is not going to be a hotel. Maybe this sounds outrageous. It's not going to be horrible, but it's not going to be nice, because it will absolutely enable you to send a message back to the people that maybe are thinking of doing the same, that we're not a soft bleeding touch. But even with what Mahmood yesterday said, break in and we'll give you £3,000 to leave. You could go back to your country, give 1,500 quid into a bank and come back again.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
We have to be honest here. What Shabana Mahmood is suggesting is that you can break into our country and you can still claim asylum. It might be a little bit more difficult, it might take you longer to get all of the rights, but you'll still be able to claim asylum. Asylum from what? These are people who are coming from a safe place in France. I think that is just mad. That cannot be the system.
As is the 500 million we pay the French.
Well, that is a complete waste of money.
I take away their fishing licences. Michael's got a question for you. Morning, Mike.
Morning, Jeremy. Michael from Birmingham. One for Ring Rob. Would consider creating a pool of volunteers, pro bono workers, of which I'd be happy to be one, with the brief of assessing asylum claims. I'm an ex-civil servant, and lots of us would be in that position. With a little bit of training, I'd be very happy to give a day or two per week, free of charge. I get through 100 applications a week. You get 1,000 like me. We clear the backlog of applications and review of asylum applications, the dodgy ones, within 6 months, free of charge. And that's a serious suggestion. Take care.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess he's not in the Home Office, because the Home Office wouldn't do that in about a year.
Yeah, look, it's
far too efficient.
It's taken far too long to review these claims. But that isn't, in honesty, the root of the challenge here, because you can make the system as efficient as you want, but all that's doing is, in many cases, granting asylum for these people to live in the UK. Then they're on the social housing waiting list. You've got to stop them coming in the first place. That's how you
couldn't agree more. Loads of response today, Rob. Carol from Merseyside. No, I did that. Hi, Jez. Didn't the Conservatives pay £3,000 each to 2 failed asylum seekers who voluntarily went to Rwanda? I don't know if they had come legally or illegally, but isn't the President already there? It would be great if you could ask Robert Jenrick about this. Do you know about that?
I don't know if they were paid, but yeah, at the very end of the last Conservative government, some people were sent to Rwanda voluntarily to kind of test out the system. Like, I thought that was a complete joke, and I actually said that.
What, Rwanda was the joke?
No, the idea that people would be going there voluntarily. If you remember, I resigned from the last Conservative government.
People need to know this
because
when they absolutely.
Why? Well, because I said that the Rwanda scheme just wasn't going to work. It had to be much tougher. You had to leave the ECHR or hive it out completely from the system.
He didn't want to be tough, Sunak, did he? It was another one.
Well, the problem is you've had a succession of Prime Ministers and Home Secretaries, and Starmer and Shabana Mahmood are just the latest in that line, who will make incremental improvements, do this, that or the other. It's all just at the edges. If you want to fix this problem, you've got to do some pretty tough things. Detain and deport, leave the ECHR, get rid of some of our activist judges, ensure that the system works better. That is the way you fix this issue. And just no one is ultimately willing to do that. And I say, I feel sorry for the British public, because yesterday was the umpteenth time in which they've heard a senior politician make big promises that they won't be able to keep.
Morning, Jezza and Rob. No matter what Shabana Mahmood says, she hasn't once mentioned leaving the ECHR or revoking parts of the UK Human Rights Act to get this mess sorted. How, if you get into government, says Sue from Huddersfield, would you, Robert Jenrick, deal with that?
Well, it's actually not that difficult. Give notice that we're leaving the ECHR and then get on and bring these rights back home to our own country. So it's Parliament making the laws and defending our borders. Why does this matter? Well, because the ECHR, although it might have been set up for noble reasons at the end of the Second War, has been completely twisted and contorted now to the point where...
it's 70 years old.
Well, things change, don't they?
Imagine what Churchill would think of it right now.
Churchill would be turning in his grave if you could see, you know, an Albanian criminal managing to delay his deportation back home because his son apparently didn't like the taste of chicken nuggets.
Mate, I can't even have that conversation. It sends me over the edge. It's the same people who say, yeah, but the thing is, I mean, have you heard this? The only people who don't agree with the ECHR are Belarus and Russia. You're going to go down that route. The fact of the matter is we keep coming back to the will of the British people, which is... I think for almost the first time, not in their history, but for many decades, have suddenly gone, look, we did all that stuff and we're fine with it, but it's really tough. If you say that to one of those do-gooding leftists, they go, well, it's not like living in Eritrea. No, but if you are north of Hampstead or Watford Gap and you're struggling with energy bills and food bills and heating bills and just basically breaking even, and you see a society that goes, seriously, break in, have everything, and we'll give you £3 to leave. I don't care who you are. That's going to wind you up, Rob, isn't it? It's going to wind you up.
And I think just so many of our politicians and media class are insulated from this problem.
Yeah,
they're not living next to the asylum hotel. It's not their kids who are trying to get a council house but can't. They're not the ones who are struggling to get a GP or a dentist they can afford to go private or have got some special arrangement. And in the House of Commons yesterday, some people were saying this was very divisive as an issue. Shabana Mahmood was saying it was divisive. I'm not sure that's right, actually. I think the vast, vast majority of the public are in exactly the same place.
Yeah, I agree.
They're sick of this issue, they want it resolved, and they're fed up with these big promises from politicians that are never delivered.
Dominated today by Shabana Mahmood. And I know that the Tory party, led by Kemi Badenoch, have said, we actually like these baby steps. We would help you get this through whilst your party turns against you. An impressive performance, but let's cut to the chase, and I don't doubt her motives for doing it. The reality when this is stripped bare, Helen, is that if you come to this country as a family and you're told you have no legal right to be here, we, the British taxpayer, who are going to be screwed still further next week, are going to give you a minimum of £3 to leave. That is barking mad.
Our fundamental problem here is that Labour's already been there for nearly a year and a half, and the situation with small boats has only got worse. As you said a moment ago, as Kemi Badenoch said yesterday in the Chamber, we will support Labour to make some progress on stopping the boats and controlling immigration. That's what people desperately want. They want to see our borders under control. They want to see, as you've just said, an end to all this money being spent on people coming here as asylum seekers and so often getting to stay. So yes, we will support any steps that the government takes while they're in power to do something about this. The problem is that they're not going far enough, and actually we don't have a great deal of confidence in them actually managing to do this. On the one hand, on Keir Starmer's MPs actually backing this, because we're already hearing grumblings from Labour backbenchers that they're against this stuff, and on the other hand, they're not willing to leave the ECHR, and they're going to come up against lawfare and all the judicial system blocking these attempts to control immigration, just as we found when we were in government. That's why we've said you have to leave the ECHR to be able to control your borders. And so the fact is, it's just not going far enough.
The £3 though, just making it about that. Let me read you this from Magda. Morning, I'm tempted to say pay me £3 and I'll leave. I'm originally from Poland and I came here legally, became British, and now I don't like the way this country has become. I'm actually considering going back to Poland with £3,000 and starting my life all over again. There's so many people contacting us this morning saying, hold on a second, We're essentially saying break into a foreign country and rather than be deported or be put in a detention centre that isn't a 4-star hotel, we're going to give you a sweetener. There isn't a country in the world, and it's our money, the taxpayers. We know taxes are going up next week. You might support their baby steps. You can't support as a party, surely, giving illegal migrants, criminals, £3 to break into our country wrongly. It's wrong.
Well, I think one of the fundamental things you have to look at is what are the pull factors that are reasons for people to come here. And you obviously don't want to have a policy which would become a reason why people would come here in order to then get money to go home. But as I said, our policy is very fundamental. It's that if you come here illegally, you should be deported straight away to a third country. We had that deal with Rwanda, so it got blocked by all the lawfare while we were in government. Labour immediately got rid of it the moment they got into power. Something I noticed that the Home Secretary said yesterday in her statement is they're looking to negotiate some deals with third countries. Well, why did they get rid of one that was already in place when they came into power?
Do you disagree fundamentally with £3,000 of British taxpayers' money being given to illegal migrants to leave this country? Do you disagree with that payment?
Look, I don't like the sound of any money being given to people who are here illegally. I know that there's a fact, which is that we do fund people so that they're not living on our streets, and that's why we need a different answer, which is that if you come here illegally, you should be deported, you shouldn't be allowed to stay. And we also want to make sure that when people are willing to go home, what's the best way and the cheapest way to the taxpayer of getting them home? These are the sorts of things that the Home Secretary and the Labour government should be doing.
Helen, I really appreciate you standing in the cold, but I have to pick you up on two things there. You said it's important as a society that we fund these people so they don't live on the streets. It's a shame that your government and this current government doesn't live the same logic towards ex-service men and women who are living on the streets because they don't get supported as migrants do. And you also said, and I'm sure morally it's great, we have a responsibility to send them home. Do we? Why is our morality allowing us to think we have more responsibility to people who have broken here? This is what's frustrating my audience this morning, than looking after the very people who are getting up every day and paying their stamp and their tax and going, I'm at the back of the queue.
I think, and the point I was making is the fact that none of us want to see people who are destitute and living on our streets wherever they've come from, and I know that is not what British people want to see. It's not what I want to see, it's not what my constituents want to see. I'm sure it's not what your viewers want to see, and therefore what we want to see when we're talking about people coming here illegally is actually them not being able to stay here, instead being returned to their home country or to a third country, but not staying in the UK. That is the fundamental point.
Do you think that the words of Shabana Mahmood will result in action, or do you think that opposition that you talked about before from backbench MPs and the do-gooders and the lovies will quash this, and it will sadly end up as nothing more than rhetoric?
I mean, this is a fundamental problem that we see with Keir Starmer and with his government, is that Keir Starmer so far has just been too weak to get anything through that his backbenchers didn't like. We saw that with welfare in the summer when he attempted to make £5 billion worth of welfare savings, and instead what they do? Well, they ended up spending more. So they're going to have the same problem with immigration, that we know there are Labour backbenchers who are not going to like it. Are they going to be able to get it through? Kemi Badenoch has said that we will help them get tougher on immigration because we know that is the right thing to do, but that doesn't mean Keir Starmer will necessarily take us up on that help. But before, we offered to help them make welfare savings, but Keir Starmer just caved to his backbenchers on that before. So on the one hand, he might not be able to get it through Parliament. On the other hand, he's not willing to leave the ECHR, so he might well get caught up in human rights and lawfare and all of that, and again, not be able to make progress that way.
I'm sure he will get caught up in the human rights issue, because that's what he is essentially. And just very quickly, nowhere to be seen, our Prime Minister yesterday. Absolutely nowhere to be seen. Front of the mirror today, he's given himself his own Tuesday vote of confidence, which, if you go by what he did with Rayner and Mandelson, means he'll sack himself on Friday, Helen Whately.
I mean, it's just extraordinary to hear about that headline. Here we are, Prime Minister a year and a half ago, not even that, had won a huge majority and having to assure his MPs that he expects to lead them into the next election. I think the problem is that shows you just how weak he is. And it's a huge problem for the country, because if you're weak, then you won't be making the decisions which will be unpopular with your backbenchers, like controlling spending on benefits. All we're going to see is more public spending, and a consequence of that, more tax rises. And that is the last thing that the country needs.
Keir Starmer, I'm sorry, I know this is going to go down like a lead balloon. I am sick to the back teeth of hearing about bloody breakfast clubs, and I would like to say, again as I did yesterday, that Mark, who comes in at some ungodly hour and sits here for hours, made a really salient point yesterday. What about adult breakfast clubs for people who get up at ungodly hours to do breakfast shows, because we get naught but a banana? Is that it with Keir Starmer? Seriously?
Well, I think it goes to the heart of why we've got such a problem in this country when it comes to the economy. And when you say the economy, people might sort of switch off. But what that means is putting food on your family's table, right? Yeah. And he's talking about, oh, we've got free breakfast clubs. What do you mean free? There is nothing, I'm afraid, in this world that is free, except perhaps a hug from your mum, right? There is nothing...
Well, no, mine's dead. I just thought I'd drop that in there so nobody hugs me. There you go.
I'll give you a hug in a minute, Jezza.
Brilliant, thanks.
But that free, well, it's coming from the people who are listening to this programme, who are getting up to go to work. There is nothing free about this. It's just taking money from one set of people to another. And if you don't do that in a very efficient way, it costs you money. And also, I think there's something deeply, actually, immoral about saying that the government is here to provide all of this stuff. But it should be families that do this. My mum would sometimes go around to her mum's house and nick some bits of bread and go and feed my brother and sister when they were younger, right? Because that's the thing that all parents do ahead of anything else. You want to look after your own children. Every parent listening to this will understand that. So when the government comes along and says, no, we're going to do all this for you, that sounds superficially like quite a nice idea. But actually what that means is the government is abnegating your responsibility to look after your own family. It's why they're going to probably in this budget get rid of the two-child benefit cap, which again means that people who are working hard, listening to this programme, getting ready to go to work, are going to be paying for those children, and people who won't do that, haven't done the kind of family planning to think how many children we can afford to have. I'd spiral that over every part of the economy.
Absolutely. And there was that clip last week from Reeves when she talked about that two-child cap, and she was saying, we don't... Well, again, I mean, I don't mean to start this early because Christian will get angry with me, but here's in essence the truth. She said, we don't want children born into poverty. Don't have them if you can't afford it. It is not down to the state. Yes, 2, but 5? No. What we're doing, and it's hardly surprising, front page of the Telegraph today, record numbers of Brits leaving this country. Aspiration, belief, faith in this country is dissipating, I think, by the minute. 6 billion more on benefits. That's in itself... I mean, I thought she was trying to cut the welfare budget bill. That didn't work because Labour MP said, oh, no, we can't do that. That doesn't look good. And now this cost of living. Sir Keir Starmer, my mum, I'm sure, but you're a knight. You're the Prime Minister of Great Britain, who is about as divorced from reality as anybody I've ever met, with not an ounce of politicalness inside you. I should say this is hugely exciting for nobody, including me. I have to read this out. Apparently the latest inflation figures are out at 7 o'clock. That'll make you change your Wednesday. The real cost of living. I think whatever you're worth and whatever you've got, we can all see. What did they say? No income tax, no VAT, no council tax, no whatever it sounds like one there. But council tax has gone through the roof. You shop. You'll know this. Mrs. P will know this. My wife says to me every day, I can't believe how much we're spending on food, just going to the supermarket. I don't know whether we live in a different world. As kids, you just said about you. It seemed... we coped more. I know this is not going to be very popular. I just feel like people need to toughen up a bit, but they need help from a government that seems to, I don't know, help people who shouldn't be helped too often and doesn't give the real people the help that it does. I don't know.
No, you're completely right. I think the problem is that the socialist mindset, to get really political about this, is that the government should do all of this stuff, right? It's bad if you look after your own kids because that's unfair to other kids that don't get looked after so much. The government should expand and do all of these sorts of things. And the problem with that is it never does any of that stuff very well. well. So you look at the people are struggling, people can't afford things. Okay, well, we'll take some more money from the rich and we'll subsidise the poor. Well, then the rich leave, exactly as you're saying. When more rich people leaving.
And how much does that cost the exchequer?
Exactly. So those of us who are left, taxes go up even more. And you get into this doom spiral that I'm afraid when you look at the amount of money that we're borrowing, the debt that's piling up, and that debt that gets bigger all the time, you end up paying more interest on that debt every year. And the proportion of money that you've got increases every year. So it starts to become not just a doom spiral. What's the metaphor going to be? That massive boulder in Indiana Jones, right? And eventually it's going to squash us if we're not careful. All the rich people go, all the third world people from different cultures come in that can't speak in English and won't work anyway come along, all the other Brits who aren't bothering to work are getting benefits, and then suddenly all the money disappears and the bond markets say no more, pull the plug, and then we are in an absolute disaster. There's a real problem coming.
I see a real apathy, unfortunately, and a real fear amongst hard-working, normal, everyday people. I watched your party tear itself to shreds. I watched this man who I don't believe, and I'll say it every day, has an ounce of political DNA inside his being. I think he is an over-promoted lawyer, grapple with so many different parts of people he's promised stuff to that he's devoid of ever being able to make a decision. But I genuinely feel out there on the streets, amongst the people that listen and watch this and people who you meet, there's a real lack of, not misery is the wrong word, they're starting to disbelieve. They're starting to look at what's bad about this country, what's going to go wrong on a daily basis, how, as I said, we favour the criminal over the victim, the illegal immigrant over the hard-working person who's paid their stamp. I saw a clip on social media and this guy just said, what's the point? I'm 65, I've worked all my damn life and I feel I am at the back of the queue. This two-child benefit cap next week, to me, is something we have to keep talking about. It's very unpopular with some, but I'm going to have the debate repeatedly. This is Rachel Thieves saying that basically have as many kids as you want. Kids shouldn't be born into poverty, and it's up to us to support people who just procreate all the time. Have a watch.
I don't think we can lose sight as well of the costs to our economy in allowing child poverty to go unchecked. And in the end, a child should not be penalised because their parents don't have very much money. Lots and lots of different reasons why families change shape and size over time. And I don't think that it's right that a child is penalised because they are in a bigger family through no fault of their own.
In another world, I used to have a phrase, get a job. I want to know from you guys this morning the real cost of living for you right now. That shop, those bills, what have you had to drop? What have you had to cut back on? Morning, Jess, it's Dave in Aberdeen. We've had to drop at least a brand. We've given up buying luxuries. Life is hard. Sean Cooper says, me and my wife used to go out for a meal and a drink every Friday. The only time we eat out now is Christmas Day and one of our birthdays. He's in Bridlington. I got offered a summer season there once. Mark's in Croydon, I'm joking. Jez, I'm one of the few people who still does 5 days a week in the office, which means I save money as I don't heat my home during the day, but it also means seeing colleagues on team calls wrapped in blankets who work from home and don't spend any money. Yeah, Steve. Morning, Jez. Morning, James. Starmer, I say liar back in the day. Kids were kids. They were not included in the worries of adults. Kids weren't sat round the table worried about money. I remember all. I don't know. I say this to my wife. We come home from school. We went out on our bikes until she shouted tea. I remember chipping the ice off the inside of the windows before I went to school. I remember, all laugh at me, I remember you didn't just go and grab something from the cupboard or the fridge because there was food and that was what you got and that was the way it was for all of us. I don't get that now. We've created this entitled generation and yet again, 6 billion more on benefits. Can we please have this out? And can I just say what I always try and say? There are people listening to this who I am more than happy to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and pay tax for because they cannot and shouldn't actually work. Mentally ill, physically disabled, I salute you. I want that on tape. But I'm sorry, if we're not going to be honest, there's no point in doing this. There are people who are lazy and entitled and have no intention of going to work, and you're going to tell me, Rachel Reeves, about another black hole, and you're going to tell me about how the finances of this country are on its backside, and yet you're spending 6 billion more on benefits. Is that going to go to the real people? Because my concern is always the people who actually maybe have never turned to the welfare state, Jay, right? And then they turn to it and they get nothing. They get nothing because it's paying out billions of pounds a year to people who are taking advantage of the system.
Right. Everybody who... I completely agree with your sentiments, by the way, that there are people out there that we should look after, and we do look after very well, and we could do even better if we spent that money more wisely. And so everybody who cares about looking after those people who can't look after themselves, a deep British idea, deep Christian idea that we should all go for, you should care even more then about the amount of money that's going to people who don't deserve it, because it means that those people who really do need it could get proper care, and you wouldn't have to have so many blanket policies where you have to go and retest people and all the rest of it, right? If you've got someone like my uncle who had multiple sclerosis, couldn't move, couldn't look after himself, one tick in a database, the guy gets looked after forever, doesn't have to worry about any of that stuff, right? Good. It's exactly as it should be. Plenty of other people that might need it for a little bit of time, plenty of people that might need it not at all, and actually being given a bit of a kick and saying, nope, the best thing for you, as Ronald Reagan said, best social welfare programme in the world is getting a job.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly as it should be, and we're not doing that. And why is that? And what is the politics about this? Why is Rachel Reeves saying this ahead of the budget? Because she knows that her neck is on the line, her boss's neck is on the line when it comes to these unruly Labour backbenchers who, as you mentioned earlier, have stopped them from being able to make any welfare savings or whatsoever. They've got to be in their bonnet about this two-child benefit cap. Most of their supporters are the people that want to keep being given money for doing nothing. And so all the measures in here where more spending comes along, given how bad they've made the economy already, all of these measures are to help them buy votes. And that's what it is, because the voters are going elsewhere from the Labour Party. They're either going to the Mad, Greens and the Islamists, or they're going to Reform or whatever else.
I'm going to play out a voice note and then I'm going to have my daily Green bashing moment. Morning, Pete.
Good morning, Jeremy. Horrible wet morning out there today. Keir Starmer, well, the Mirror had the ideal thing yesterday when they put that stuff in about him. It should have said, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the biggest liar of them all? Keir Starmer, he's not on the same planet as us. And yeah, as for people's mums, yeah, I'm nearly 70 years old, mate. I could still do with a hug from my mum. My mum and dad years ago with the generation that were Labour voters, they would be absolutely shocked, appalled and ashamed of how that party's running these days. It's not for the country. It's not for the people. Well, certainly not for our people, is it? Only for people who just want to walk in here and get everything for nothing.
You see, and Pete, you know, his parents voted Labour. Pete's a working class man who's paid his taxes all of his life. And when I say things like this, people say, that's outrageous. We should be more caring and more moralistic and we should do that. I think we can be, but I think the minute you lose sight of your own people is when you are genuinely in trouble. And that is not far-right rhetoric. That's just... I was a salesman. Here, there's a surprise. And I learnt a lesson very early on from a great guy, Michael Charnaheaton. I'm giving him a... He taught me everything I know about selling. And he said to me, the basic mistake that salesmen make, and I think you could use this analogy for politics, is if you go and chase all new business to the detriment of dealing with your existing customers, you will fall on your backside. I believe that politicians in this country have forgotten that the millions of people who pay their taxes and don't complain, who have gone through highs and lows, are no longer going to fall for that sort of virtue signalling BS from the left who say, yes, I know it's hard for you, but you're not in Eritrea, are you? Or, you know, I really think the British people have got to a point where they go, what about us? And I think that's absolutely fair.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And there's an amazing proof point for this. Just yesterday, some mad lefty backbench Labour MP, I think called Kat Eccles, came out and attacked the Home Secretary, who is seemingly the one person in the Labour Party trying to deal with the illegal immigration problem, saying, this is just pandering to the electorate. Yes, how awful that politicians should do what they're elected to do.
Get that up, Christian. It's right. Pandering to the electorate, the people who elected you.
Didn't you know that our job as politicians is to lecture you and tell you British people that you're all evil and ghastly and right-wing bigots? No. Right? That's the mindset of some of these people.
Yeah.
And I remind people, you know, my party that lost the last election, Labour didn't win. It was basically winning by default. And you've got these people in who've believed their own guff, right, who think that they, you know, don't smell when they go to the loo in the morning, and they've come into contact with reality, contact with the electorate. And these people go, what, we've elected you? You absolutely don't represent me in the slightest. And the Labour Party, not one I would ever vote for, but I just do wonder sometimes. You think Clement Attlee, who sat there, who was sort of shoulder to shoulder with Churchill in the war, patriotic, founded NATO, helped us get nuclear weapons, all this sort of stuff. He'd look at this party now and think, my God, I should have joined the Tories and never got this stuff going.
There is some clue in the title, Labour. It was for labourers. It was for working people. For the people who voted for Keir Starmer and his Islington-based acolytes, I never thought that they represented the working man and woman. I genuinely don't. This is interesting. Mark Hart says, Jez, I work in DWP and I see the bank statements of the claimants. The only people struggling on benefits are single parents with no disabilities. The ones with kids, they blow every penny every single month. One non-stop Uber Eats, gambling, Amazon. The more they get, the more they want, the more they waste. There's no need for a family to struggle even with the two-child cap. Now, some people might disagree with that. Johnny Field, good morning to you. I split with my long-term partner last year, Jez. I've managed to keep a roof over my head for the last 14 months, but I now, as a result of what's happening economically, face the prospect of living in my lorry, in my work yard, in the new year, as my bills are just ridiculous. I work 60 hours a week, every week. This is Johnny in Kettering. This is the reality. This is what I want to do here, right? He's going to have to live in his lorry. Forget that he's split from his missus. That happens. I should know that, right? But Johnny is trying to keep a roof over his head, pay for his kids, pay for his ex, and he's going to have to live in his lorry. And if I was Johnny in Kettering, when I woke up in my lorry feeling stiff and cold and tired and wet, I'd think, what am I doing 60 hours a week for? Because sure as eggs is eggs. If Johnny thought, I'm not doing this, and went to wherever they'd say, no, Mr. Johnny from Kettering, you can't have anything. And that's where it's unfair. And very soon, I think, a lot of English, British, whatever you want to say, people are going to go, what's the point of working? That's the reality. What is the point? Yep.
The Welsh and the Scots and the Ulstermen will say exactly the same thing as well. But if that poor chap came in on the back of that lorry, he'd be given a roof over his head, no problem, right?
I have to try and be as balanced as possible. I'm almost speechless. Where's this £6 billion to spend on benefits come from when apparently we've had to U-turn on income tax? It's ludicrous, isn't it?
Absolutely crazy. And good morning, Jeremy. It's going to come from hard-working taxpayers like Sean, who you just heard from a moment ago. People that are doing the right thing, going out, working hard, paying their tax. Well, they're going to be asked for paying even more tax. And we think that's going to come by way of extending the freeze to the thresholds for tax, which means that more people will be dragged into paying those higher tax rates. And you're absolutely right. What's it going on? It's going on billions of pounds of additional welfare payments, including, we suspect, scrapping the two-child benefit cap, which means that under Labour, you know, if you're on benefits, you'll be able to have as many children as you wish and receive benefits at the taxpayer's expense to pay for that. So not really having to take the hard choices that those that rely simply on hard work and paying their taxes have to take when it comes to the size of their family. So all the wrong choices here, I'm afraid.
And that's the point. And Mel, from the listeners and the viewers this morning, in their droves, they're all saying one thing. Why on earth do we make the choice to live our lives correctly, go to work, pay our taxes, live within the law, when it seems that... And let's talk about Shabana Mahmood. Great language the other day. I don't know whether it would be possible to get any of that through, but we seem to have become a society that benefits or helps people who don't do or put in to the detriment of the indigenous population. And I can tell you categorically, the British people have had enough.
Yeah, well, look, we need to have a government that's got some backbone, and you talk about, you know, stopping the rates of illegal migration, and Shabana clearly had a number of things that she set out yesterday, some of which is sort of leaning in the right direction, but it won't amount to a plan that's
James, can I stop you there? Can I stop you there 1 minute, because you're a nice man. To those idiots behind you, OK, I have a message, OK? Yeah. Go and get a job, OK? Go and do something more useful than making idiots of yourselves. Bye-bye. Sorry, Mel Stride, please continue. They're idiots.
That's all right. Don't worry. Unfortunately, I can't see them for the.
Well, you've got a sooty and sweep on each shoulder. That's all I want you to know. So I want you to.
Is that right? Oh, okay. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Okay. All right. So anyway, back to illegal migration. Look, we need a proper plan here, which has got to have deterrence at its heart. We have said that we will step out of the ECHR, which means we then have the capacity to actually remove people from our shores pretty much as soon as they arrive. And I think anything short of that step is just not going to cut it. So I agree with you. I mean, these are kind of measures which are going halfway but not all the way in terms of coming up with a proper solution.
Yesterday, a Labour lefty called Kat Eccles, who I'm told is not named after the cake, came out with something that I thought was extraordinary and perhaps sums up where so many people in this country have lost faith in the political system. She said and accused Shabana Mahmood of, and I quote, "With these immigration suggestions, she is simply pandering to the electorate." Now, don't get me wrong, Mel Stride, you and your colleagues are elected by us to do a job for us. I find it astonishing that we live as we do. Yes, inflation's fallen briefly this morning, small, but everybody's telling me how hard and difficult it is to live and survive with this cost of living. We've all noticed it. And you've got people like Kat Eccles going, why are you listening to the British people? This government, your last government, I'm being honest, didn't listen at the right time. The British people deserve to be heard, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely. We live in a democracy, and politicians get re-elected or not, depending on what the electorate think of them. And, you know, this idea that somehow you're pandering to the electorate, I mean, what we've got to do is listen to the electorate. Now, you mentioned inflation there, Jeremy, and you're right, it has come down a little bit. It's still going to be the highest in the G7 this year and next year, according to the IMF, so it's way too high. But within that, food inflation has gone up from 4.5% to 4.9%. So a lot of your listeners who are going around the supermarket and wondering why, when they get to the checkout counter, things are going up, there is your answer. Food inflation, I'm afraid, is still increasing. And that's because of some of the tax choices this government's taken. And, of course, they've borrowed and spent vast amounts of taxpayers' money and borrowed money, and that has stoked inflation as well.
I mean, I say this every day, and I think it's really, really important to say we're in the grip of a party that can't add up, because we cannot even afford the interest on the debts we've got. You'll know this is the Shadow Chancellor. They lent 20 billion last month, half of which was spent on paying interest, 180 billion a year. It's not sustainable, but it comes down to pure economics. I was brought up, my old girl, before she, literally, I remember, even at the age of 80, had this ledger, Mel, right? And each month was credits and debits, and that's how they lived their lives. This government promises to everybody, and I think the British people then go, hold on a second, so you're giving, I mean, foreign nationals claiming universal credit, for example. I mean, the whole thing is appalling, and again, to the detriment of people working really hard. And something's got to change. It really has to.
Yeah, it definitely does. Look, we've been living beyond our means for some time now. You're right about your point about debt interest. Debt interest alone is 100 billion a year. That is twice what we're spending on defending this country, our defence budget. And the way to get it down is control government spending. We set out a lot on that at our recent party conference. You know, at the moment, Jeremy, the civil service in 2016, it's grown since then by 37%. To the present day. So we will cut that back to the size that it was in 2016. We've announced a large number of proposals to save £23 billion from that welfare budget. So really getting on top of all the kind of issues that your listeners have been talking about, including not paying benefits to foreign nationals. So, you know, we are absolutely in the right place in terms of what we need to do, but of course we need to get back into office to do that.
Can I ask you a question, a personal question? Can this country financially survive another 3.5 years of this Labour madness?
I think it's getting really, really difficult. I mean, there are lots of people speculating about some kind of financial reckoning coming our way, perhaps around the bond markets. And I think things are looking pretty dicey. What the Chancellor has definitely got to do in this budget is make sure that whatever it is she decides to do, that the commentariat and the markets afterwards say, right, that's it, done. She's not going to be having to come back for yet more tax increases, because that uncertainty around what's going to happen in the future and what she's going to do and whether she's really resolved and stabilised the situation is absolutely key now. So that's one of the main things that I'm going to be looking out for.
I mean, I look at her being interviewed. It's your job to shadow her, and she looks more frightened and less focused and more confused on a daily basis. And I think that because she's backtracked on income tax and almost everything, I think people's belief is going. But I do want to make that point to all politicians that the British people, I know this, are are getting to a point where they're not prepared to accept this anymore. Mel, I have to say, if you were on stage, you would have been given an Oscar for that, if you could see what's on behind you, but these are idiots who should go to work. We thank you so much indeed, my friend. This story is extraordinary, and I wanted you to put it into layman's terms for us. A Russian spy ship on the edge of UK waters was accused last night of using lasers to shine in the eyes of RAF pilots. This resulted in the Defence Secretary John Healey coming out and saying, "We are ready," which everybody knows we're not. What is this all about in layman's terms, my friend?
Well, in layman's terms, what it means is that for a number of years now, the Russians have been engaged in provocations, as it were, against the UK. And when I say provocations, I mean they have buzzed us with their airplanes, they have attempted to enter our naval exclusion zones and into our territorial waters and, kind of get us to track them. They've been tracking submarines. And in this case, what they're trying to do is map the network of undersea sea cables that actually connect this country through technology with others. So basically what they're doing is mapping those. There's a suspicion they might be potentially weaponizing those by either getting to know their locations so that they've rigged them already with booby traps, or that they would be able to do so in the event of a conflict. And of course, it's a major security threat because that's how our information flows happen. All the data on the internet goes under the sea. And if you cut that, if you destroy that, suddenly we are cut off. And so it's quite a serious event.
Alan, yesterday we talked with Sir Ian Duncan-Smith about this concern amongst many people that the Chinese are, for example, trying to infiltrate Parliament, the spies, the case that was thrown out, financial incentives. And Sir Ian was saying, look, this government, and in fact past governments, need to wake up to the real fear that China, that axis with Iran and Russia, is a viable thing. And this seems to be another example. If I step back from this, I'm thinking, so we're allowing, or not, I don't know whether we're able to do anything. It sounds very, very dodgy, and it makes you sit here and think, well, surely we need to have that ship escorted, or we'll take it. Is it Vladimir Putin flexing his muscles? It must be. It will send the people who believe that Vladimir Putin's got more desires on other parts of Europe than just Ukraine into meltdown. Others will say this has been going on for years. Do you see it as an escalation, or do you just see it as Putin doing what I guess he does so often, which is play games with the heads of, well, most countries, I would imagine it would be fair to say?
Well, it's not an escalation per se, Jeremy. As you pointed out, he's done it for years. So the reality is that his, if you like, his aggression, his desire to threaten us has been there for a long, long time. It's just that only latterly have some people, at least, woken up to it. It is, though, of course, a source of danger. If the Russians have mapped out completely the undersea cable network, that is not good news from the perspective of our information technology, national security.
What can we do? How can we respond to it, Alan?
So what the I think what the Defence Secretary was doing, quite rightly, was, if you like, firing a shot over the Russian bows to say, if you're going to come anywhere 1 centimetre into our territorial waters, we will respond. And I suspect there'll be a very serious response. So right now, all you can do is monitor. The Navy does have some counter techniques it can use. There are a couple of ships we have that are able to engage in certain capabilities, shall we say, to disrupt what the Russians are doing. But the real fear is they've already got a lot of data, having done this over years. So right now, all we can do is monitor. We can certainly, and we're well within our rights, and he was right to warn the Russians that if you do stray into territory, we will respond. And that, so far, are the kinds of things Russians do listen to. The fear is, of course, they're going to keep on trying to test us. They scrambled planes into NATO space fairly recently. And we've had mysterious drones turning up at all sorts of places in various NATO countries. The Russians are testing us. It's a provocation. It's designed to play with our minds, but it is also, I'm afraid, quite a serious threat because it is about understanding the intelligence to see how we respond to threats.
Just one final question. You're the Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society. I wanted to say that as by way of an introduction. You've defected to reform. You're very well versed in these things. I read on a daily basis those who say it's an agreement. It's something I agree with. It seems that successive governments for years, believing the Cold War is over, have cut back our military to almost embarrassing. I think somebody told me the other day there are less people in our Army, Navy and Air Force than there are have come into our country illegally in the last 2 years, which is an extraordinary statistic. But I read overnight, we're ready. Are we as a fighting force? Are we not way behind the 8 ball in real terms? What is the truth?
Well, we're not ready for a full-scale war. Absolutely not. We are some way off that. And the reality is we need to invest seriously in defence capabilities that are atrophied, frankly, since the 1990s. And that isn't a political comment. The successive governments have done that, basically. And what we're quite aware of is that the nature of the threats have proliferated in recent years. The type of threats have also changed. And as a result, the British Army does need to be brought up to speed pretty quickly. We need to be spending at least 3% on defence much quicker than the government wants to get us there. They've woken up at least to the idea we've got to get there, but we've got to go there quickly and then probably to 3.5% even quicker thereafter. So if we don't get there, Jeremy, we are leaving the nation's defences underutilised because we do not have the capabilities right now to deal with all the threats that are out there, and that is not a good position for a country to be in.
Now, more bad headlines for the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. But first, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex. It's revealed in a new interview given to Harper Bazaar magazine that somebody has to announce her name and title before she walks into a room. She still thinks she's royalty. Well, let's get the views now from journalistic royalty. Prince Harry's biographer, no less, Angela Levin. Good morning, Angela.
Hello, good morning.
What are the details here? This is a really, really interesting article by Harper's Bazaar magazine. I think Meghan thought it would be a softball interview, but the person that interviewed her has pretty much destroyed her reputation in this article, hasn't she?
Totally, but that's because she doesn't listen to what she's saying. And the worst thing that I think in that, I'll come back to the other one in a minute, is that what she said about Harry, because she said that she really fell for him because she liked his childhood wonder and playfulness, and that he loves her so boldly and fully, right? No one word about her loving him. I can't imagine any man whose wife said that to him, that she was childlike wonder, and that's why she's much better than him. She's much more sensible, much more clever. And, I think he'd walk out the door. But what a terrible thing to say about your husband. That's so patronising, so cruel, so awful. So that's the first thing, I think.
Well, yes, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned that, Angela. Before we get to the royal titles, she is calling him a man boy, isn't she? She is saying the true bit out loud, which is that he's her accessory, he's the help, he's an assistant, he's the spare in his own marriage.
Yes, but it's not even that he's a man boy. She's just a boy.
Yeah.
I think it is so rude. And she thinks this is lovely. I mean, that's why she's got no idea how to behave. She can't be interviewed. She should realise that by now. But she says all the wrong thing. And actually, to get somebody, a member of staff, to call out, Meghan, Duchess of her, and you sort of say, well, what's the matter? You're not the royal. Harry is the royal. She hated the royal. She didn't want to take part in anything at all unless she got extra money while she was at the royal family. And how can she think that? She has to feel that she's absolutely super wonderful, super clever. But you're not super clever when you do something like that. It's cruel, nasty, and if that's what she thinks, she's even worse than I thought.
Well, she's infantilizing him, calling him a sort of somebody with childlike wonder. It's a shocking thing, like you said, to say to your husband. And she didn't mention, as you said, that she loves Harry, but that he knows that he's got to look out for her and that he will, which doesn't sound like an expression of love. That sounds, Angela, like an instruction.
Well, she said that he will always have me back. Well, when's he
have my back? Have my back.
Yeah.
And I think the line was something like, he knows that he will always have my back. There's something coercive there, I think.
I think it's a double thing. Let's have a double thing. That she actually, is he going to go away before he comes back? And is it just she's there for patting her on her back, say, don't worry, dear. I prefer the first. I think it's so cruel, unnecessary.
Well, that's right. He's being gaslit by his own wife. And what about this suggestion in the article that when the journalist was with Meghan Markle, there's just one person in the room, and yet an official comes in and announces Meghan's title before she walks in.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's absolutely ludicrous. Why does she want that? So that everybody knows that she's superior to everyone who's going to come in and talk to her?
Yes.
No, Catherine, Princess Catherine, she always says to people, my name's Catherine. She doesn't go around spouting all that. It's pathetic. And she's actually not a royal properly. She doesn't work for it. She hated it. You can't actually give yourself a name which you actually hated to have. I mean, it doesn't make sense.
It makes no sense at all. And Angela, what about the trailer for Meghan's new Christmas special, which contains within it an egregious public display of affection between Meghan and Harry? In my view, he looks terrified, but let's, for those watching on YouTube and those listening on the radio, listen or watch to the trailer for With Love Meghan, the Christmas special.
I love the holiday season. It's about finding time to connect with the people we love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Embracing traditions.
I like this.
There we go. And making new ones.
We are now in the Christmas spirit.
It's pretty jolly here.
Let's go craft.
Heyo. It's so pretty.
So easy and elegant.
It's better the next day and everything turns red.
It's so festive. Being a hostess or a host, it's about making people feel comfortable.
You can do things that make people feel a little bit more seen. See?
Let the festivities commence and embrace the special touches that bring you joy.
Should we see if this works?
One,
there we go.
2, 3.
Oh! There we go.
Well, it was a nauseating effort, that, just over a minute long. A minute of my life, Angela Levin, that I won't get back. But what was notable was the brief kiss between the Duchess and the Duke. What did you make of it?
Well, he was having some cereal or something. He was eating from a bowl. And it was a bit ridiculous timing. It was just to show that she, she's very, very happy and he loves her. That was a very silly thing. And she didn't say Christmas celebration, called it holiday celebration. She didn't say once that it was Christmas, even though there was Christmas trees and crackers and all those things. Crackers, mind you, are not very popular in America. They are in the UK, but she managed to get that somehow, but she couldn't get a poppy when she was at the party because she said it was too difficult, but she got what she wanted. I thought the children weren't there. She basted turkey or chicken, whatever it was, on the table in a sort of silk dress, sort of painting it, as it were. You don't do that when everything's there on the table and it's ready. I mean, she doesn't know how to do things. She's aiming to be wonderful, but she's ridiculous, really. Well, absolutely.
I agree with you, Angela. Whenever she cooks, she looks like she's going to burn the house down. I mean, apparently
she doesn't know what she's doing. No, she couldn't see that.
The milk overflows and she's a klutz and she falls out with all her guests on her TV show. The other thing concerning Angela about that promo, that little trailer, was the fact that she's zoomed in, the camera zoomed in, on a mug that she did for her 2 children about how they've been good this year and that Santa's going to be generous. I mean, this is a major invasion of their privacy, isn't it, the children?
Well, what's interesting is that she did say that one of them, I don't know which one, didn't believe in Santa Claus anymore. So why is she doing a mug like that? She made a big thing about they're too grown up, whichever one it was. I don't think it was probably the older one. But she sort of, doesn't like it if they're not doing what fits her for the moment. But if it's just a holiday celebration, why is she doing a cup with Santa on it? I mean, nothing fits, does it?
Nothing fits, and she talks about the privacy of her children, but then zooms in on a mug, which is a special Christmas gift, which I would argue is private, Angela. And, of course, she puts them on social media every 10 seconds. Before I let you go, Prince Andrew rejects an invitation to speak to Congress about Jeffrey Epstein, probably for the best.
Yes. I mean, I don't particularly like him, but I feel he's got the right to say no. They do ask politely. It's not a must. And I think he's got to protect himself if he doesn't want it, and actually don't go, don't do it. If he doesn't have to, don't do it. We all know it's been dreadful, awful, but that's not going to do much better for him. And I think he can just actually say, thank you very much for inviting me, but, you know, I'm washing my hair that day, or something silly.
A £200 million establishment stitch-up, which protects the political, medical and media elite. I think that this ridiculous amount of money spent on a COVID inquiry that supports lockdowns is a national scandal, given the damage to this country, but it's all about opinions. How about this from Rachel? Good morning, Mark. This is a first for me. I disagree with you about something. An elderly person with comorbidity is equally important as a younger pregnant mother. Every life has equal value. Rachel, thank you for that. Jackie, everyone forgets that Boris nearly died. And by the way, nobody is blaming the Chinese. Trump tried, and even he was silenced. Boris had no choice. He followed the so-called experts. Joanna in Salisbury. Mark, I wish they would put as much effort into the rape gang inquiries as they're chewing over COVID. As I remember, Boris was heard shouting on a phone, trying not to lock down. He got put back in his box by scientists he had to rely on at the beginning. Then he nearly died. Rob says, Mark, I was an NHS nurse. During COVID, it was hell. I got very sick myself with COVID and subsequently pneumonia and was hospitalised myself on ITU. I've never fully recovered properly and have not been able to fully return to nursing due to long COVID, lung and heart issues that affect my everyday functioning and quality of life. I'm 60 years old. It's devastated my life and I'm on benefits now. Rich, my heart goes out to you. That is absolutely devastating. And it is obviously the impact of COVID, a nasty virus. But in my view, the measures to tackle it were deeply wrong because they destroyed the economy, a mental health tsunami, a generation of damaged kids, and a waiting list in the NHS of 8 million people. But it's all about opinions. Keep yours coming. What did you sacrifice for the pandemic? I want to hear your stories. 0344 499 1000. What is going on with the weather? Why is it so cold? And how long is this cold snap going to last? I'm delighted to say that I'm joined now by the outstanding meteorologist at Square Raindrop, Joe Wheeler. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning to you. Well, the good news is for a couple of days, we're going to put some of these winter hazards back in the drawer and look at some other ones instead. But don't think the cold weather's gone too far away. But we will certainly see a change over the weekend. But a brief snapshot of what we've got this morning. Over parts of Scotland, temperatures are in minus double digits.
Wow.
Now, those figures have yet to be confirmed, as we always do with maximums and minimums like that. But certainly very cold, sub-zero over many, many parts of the country this morning. And where we've had late showers, and we're talking here about the east coast, down towards the southeast, very big risk of ice as the cloud there clears away. In fact, I'm watching the dawn in Lincolnshire, and again, the bank of cloud just clearing away off into the North Sea. Now, of course, North Yorkshire got hit really hard yesterday, very heavy snowfall, many roads were shut. It was snowing on the roads as quickly as they could clear them. So hopefully everybody's all right and managed to get home last night, because that really was quite appalling conditions. But what we've got today, to say plenty of sunshine out towards the west. It's going to be a lovely, lovely dawn. Do watch out for those icy stretches because they will be around. But the cloud already is increasing over Ireland. And I mentioned those minus double digits over Scotland. Already over western parts of Ireland, we've got 8 degrees. So you can see with this change to, let's call it less cold air, because I don't think we're going to return to the kind of values that we saw last week, which saw parts of the south see 18.5 degrees Celsius. So over the weekend, as I say, we exchange all the wintry hazards for the ones that go along with wet and windy weather. Now, as this moves in, it's running into the cold air. There is a potential to see some snow over the higher routes, mostly of the north, but not exclusively. So if you are travelling, that is something to be aware of. If you get caught in that front edge of the rain, it could give you some snow for a while.
And how long is it going to stay this cold, Joe?
Well, as I say, temperatures will be picking up a little bit over the weekend. We've seen temperatures, daytime temperatures of around 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. And obviously, if you're starting from a sub-zero figure, it takes a while even for those figures to climb. We've had Arctic air across the country. It's not just been us. Parts of France, in fact, all the way down into Spain, this Arctic air has spilled its way through. And in addition, we ended up with low pressure out towards the east, high pressure to the west, And if you know which way the winds go round, you'll know that force a northerly flow. So along with those low temperatures, we have this brisk northerly wind, particularly over eastern counties, which gave a significant wind chill factor. Now, as I say, a lot of that is moving away. Brief high pressure building today kicks that northerly flow into touch. But then we get the cloud and the wind and the rain coming in. So tomorrow, whilst we will see temperatures around 7, 8, 9 degrees Celsius, which is still a little bit low for the time of year, you've got the wind to go with that. So again, it's not going to feel very pleasant, particularly not where you're getting rained upon. There's a very deep area of low likely to cross the south of the country on Sunday. Details, again, to be established. It's quite a way off. But that could bring some gales for parts of the south, the southwest and the southeast, which, of course, being a very populated area, will be impactful.